Welcome to the Commissioner Corner for July of 2019. I'm your host, Scott Vargo. I'm joined by County Commissioner Elisabeth Lawrence, and our set is a little bit vacant today. Both Commissioners Stiegelmeier and Davidson are unable to make it, so we decided we would plug ahead with a summer update now that we've actually have summer, and by the time we get to August, it might be gone again, so we thought we would hit it while we could. First thing we wanted to chat about was flood and flood season. So you want to give everybody a little bit of an update on how the floods did or did not impact Summit County?
Yeah, so we did have a few places in the lower blue that water was high, as well as Bill's Ranch area, a few places, but that's because we had so much late season snow. It was still snowing in late June and then rapidly quick melt, but generally things were pretty good for that. So we felt on top of it, no major impacts.
Yeah, fantastic with the amount of snow. Just got lucky with sort of a steady melt through the first part of the season. And then the winter kind of hung on, and we just had this summer break right before the 4th of July, which was nice. And so I think we're out of the woods in terms of flood danger, so that's good news.
Yes, but the water is higher than normal this time of year, and I imagine it will be that way for a little bit. So
absolutely.
It does impact some people's summer plans, so we're reminding people, keep your kids out of the river and creek and things like that.
A bunch of swift water prevention stuff. And again, you can find a whole lot of information with regards to flooding on the county's website, as well as the town websites have that information as well. Again, back to the big winter that we had. We all know the tremendous amount of avalanche activity that we had as well. So we did get the 10-mile rec path open. You want to talk a little bit about that project?
Yes, open ahead of schedule, which is amazing and so great for so many cyclists, visitors, and residents that come and want to use that. So what we had is over a mile between Frisco and Copper of the rec path that was buried in, I think, over 20 different avalanches, some as high as 20, 30 feet. It was really deep. And so the county started that process, put out an RFP, found a contractor. They worked fast and furious and did a really nice job and got ahead of schedule. And really, we would be remiss if we did not thank our community partners who helped us with this. The town of Frisco, the Forest Service, and Copper Mountain Resort all financially helped us with this unprecedented cost and major costs that we weren't expecting. And so thanks to them, we are now ready to go for the summer. And the timing worked out well because there weren't many warm days that you'd want to be out on your bike before then.
And we could have perhaps gotten started sooner in terms of the clearing, but because the avalanche danger still existed all the way into the beginning of June, we couldn't get a contractor out to actually begin the work until we got clearance that the avalanche danger had subsided.
I think that's really important to note is that this was still dangerous even in the summer because we did have winter that hung on a bit, and we needed to receive clearance from that. We would not want to put anyone in further danger. So.
And the only note with regards to the rec path, there is still some snow buried or hidden within some of the avalanche debris, and so if you are using the rec path, just pay attention. There may be some slick spots. There may, it's still Summit County, so it still can get cold, so there may be some ice spots as well, so just pay attention to those things.
And I heard there was a little flooding in some areas this past weekend, and so, but here in a week or so, it'll be open and just like normal.
Perfect. Let's see, the chipping program. So we made some changes to the chipping program this year. I think we may have mentioned that in the last show that we did, but we're into July. The program started on the 17th of June. You want to talk a little bit about some of the changes and then maybe where folks can expect to see the chipping program?
Sure. So changes is that we were going through just once in each area, and that was due to not being able to find a contractor that could go through anymore. But they were working really intensely in those areas while they were there. So now that we're in July, we'll be over in Silverthorne and Dillon, different areas of there, pretty much through July 19th. And then we move over the next week, beginning July 22nd, over into the Highlands area, Summit Estates, all back through there off Tiger Road, Airport Road, and then different places. So we're all around. People can find where they will be in the county at Summit County countyco.gov/chipping. That's the website, and people can go there and see when their neighborhood is going to be part of it. We're running this through the end of September, beginning of October, so there's still good chances that we'll be at your area.
Yep, and make sure that you have your piles out and piles set up according to the program guidelines by 8 o'clock in the morning on the Monday of the week.
That's right.
That the chipper is in your area, because it may be at your house at 8 o'clock on that Monday, and they're not going to be able to come back around and catch you up at the end of the week if you miss that Monday deadline. So put it out first of the week.
That's right. And related to chipping, we did just approve some wildfire grants across the county. That amount was nearly $500,000 in grants, nearly $500,000 in wildfire funding grants. Some of those involve some small-scale chipping projects and some HOAs and neighborhoods and things like that, but really great projects. And so people will start seeing work around the county throughout the rest of the summer and fall. And so these are big programs and all to address wildfire.
Yep, wonderful, wonderful. Let's talk quickly about Bike to Work Day. We had not quite a record, but a really good turnout for Bike to Work Day this year within the county.
Over 500 people throughout the county, which is just great. It shows, now I will say in their defense, we still had some cold weather then. In fact, I think Bike to Work Day was on a Wednesday, and I believe that Wednesday night is when it really snowed a lot. So the fact that we had that many people and it was still really cold and snowy out, I think is very impressive. So it shows Summit County's commitment.
Yes, hardy folks here in Summit County. Let's see, road projects for 2019. We've got a number of bigger projects on tap, and then we've got some smaller ones. Big projects are the Cove Loop, continuation of that project. Peak One Drive, which is sort of within the County Commons complex and leads up to the hospital. You want to talk a little bit about why that road is closed?
Yeah, so that road, I think more people used it than they thought they did, but now that it's closed. And so that connects from, say, down by the County Commons building where someone would go for their driver's license, that building, up to the hospital. And some people may or may not have used that as a shortcut in the past, but that is closed this year because we are changing the route of that road, and that will be our new sand storage building. So we have to change the route of the road to cut that out. So there are some impacts in there that people can see. So we'll bring that road right along the County Commons building and connect it down to near the recycling down there. And then we'll add a new sand storage building, and then that will change so that we can do some other projects within the County Commons.
Provide some more land opportunities for us rather than having it occupied by a roadway. That will be closed through the early part of November if everything stays on track and on schedule. I've only made that mistake of making that turn out of the hospital twice so far, where I've had to go back around through the parking lot, as I've forgotten already. Eventually it will stick with me. Well, when they moved the copy machine in the office, they had to put a sign up when I would walk out of my office that said copier that way, so I stopped going the other way.
So we are creatures of habit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see, Boreas Pass Road, another big project, and then another one to talk about, Swan Mountain Road. So we did a chip seal this past year, and that chip seal didn't take the way that it should, and so that contractor is going to come back and they're going to do some repair work there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Swan Mountain is such a well-traveled road. It's a very popular route in Summit County. Our visitors take it to enjoy the views, but so many of our residents take it to get back and forth to work. And so the contractor's coming out to warranty issue there to replace that part, but it is going to be some major delays there. And so we're encouraging people when that's going on to find an alternate route.
And the timing for that is the week of the 29th of July. Assuming the weather holds out. And what they'll do instead of a chip seal is they'll do what's called a slurry seal. It should be a very good product at the end of the day and make for a much nicer, smoother surface for everybody. And then at the same time, our road and bridge crews will be out there doing some more heavy patchwork at the same time. So taking advantage of the closure.
And they have some guardrail repair that they're doing at that same time. I mean, all these are great safety and also will help our cyclists that use Swan Mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was driving over to a meeting in Keystone just before the 4th of July, and apparently a truck had dumped its load of rock and gravel, so not an ideal time for the bikers that part of the day when they had dropped a bunch of material there, and our folks got out there and tried to clean it up as quickly as they could.
They did.
All right, let's see. Other seasonal damage repair. So again, we've got some pothole stuff on Swan Mountain. We'll do some other work around on County Road 450 near Huron Landing that suffered some stuff, Dam Road, and then Baldy Road. So some good projects, along with all of the traditional maintenance work that our folks do. A few more because of the heavy winter that we experienced.
Right, and I think people forget how much plows really impact our road maintenance. And so when we had a year like this with a heavy freeze-thaw cycle, extreme snow that came in these big storms, I mean, our roads really took a beating, but we haven't had a lot of an opportunity to get out there and start fixing them yet. So we're just now getting into that nicer weather.
Yep. So be prepared. There'll be lots of road work activity, and so be careful, drive safely, but drive slowly through those work zones so everybody makes it home. Let's see, fire restrictions and criteria. We made some changes. We've talked in this forum before, but why don't you talk a little bit about what we're changing and who's on board with those changes?
So all of our towns, as well as both of our fire districts, Red, White, and Blue, and Summit Fire and EMS, have worked with us to get to this point, really with their direction. And so it's about how we go into fire restrictions, stage 1 and stage 2, and really update the science on that. And when the county first goes into those fire restrictions on the advice of the sheriff, it makes it so much easier for those municipalities to enter right along with us. We want to have a unified message for our visitors and our residents about what our fire restrictions are. It also really cleaned up the language in there and made it simpler for people to understand, especially when it came to cooking and if you could be smoking outside and using, say, a pellet grill and different in your backyard fire ring, and when you could and could not do that. So really updated that, simplified it, because we want this to be a positive experience for our residents and our guests.
And right now we're fortunate. Again, we're through the flooding. We're certainly greened up around Summit County. Indications are that the weather in July is likely to be a little bit wetter than normal, and so we may end up getting through sort of the heart of the traditional fire season without too much fire danger within Summit County. But keep in mind, regardless of how green it looks, regardless of however low the fire danger may be, there is always a risk. And so please pay attention to what you're doing and how you're managing a campfire if you're out in the backcountry or if you're doing something even on your own property. Just be careful and mindful of how fires can start within the county.
And I think here we are not trying to be relaxed on how we're watching out for fires, even though this is a wet year. With our Strong Future funding that passes last year, we have lots of wildfire mitigation efforts that are underway and working with the Forest Service and the Sheriff's Office and lots of others. And so this is what we want to be a way of life here in Summit County, and it is going to be a change. I think we're lucky in that this is a good year to start getting the habit of doing all these new things and having the fire patrol out more often and things like that. But it's always a risk here. And let's not take it for granted.
And oftentimes in Summit County in years past, the real fire season for us is late August, September, and into October. And so we would expect that this will be a more standard sort of fire season for us in Summit County. And so when everybody else is sort of finished up with their fire season, that's when it sometimes hits in Summit County. And sometimes the resources aren't as plentiful as well. So we'll continue to be mindful of that. Last item that we'll cover is trailheads and some capacity issues. So certainly over the years, we continue to see a lot of our trailheads filled up with parking, running into highways in some cases, running into neighborhood streets in other cases. And I think that what we want to do is encourage people to look at other ways to get to the trails. So What can you tell
And
them
that
about
goes
that?
for our visitors
Yeah.
and our local residents.
Yep.
And so for our local residents, we'd encourage using the summit stage, carpooling, maybe biking to a trailhead, lots of different options, but the parking at trailheads is becoming unsustainable at many trailheads and really having some negative impacts on neighbors and the trailheads themselves. And so we are not yet ready to go to, say, a permitting system like how Hanging Lake has been, but that might not be far off. And so I'm hoping we can really encourage our hikers and people going to trailheads to use these alternative modes to get there. We have a robust summit stage system. Breckenridge Free Ride has a robust system as well. And so using some of those public transportation ways to get to those trailheads, and thus you're not parking your car for, say, 6 hours at a time while maybe you're out for a long hike and a long day hike or whatnot. And so those are things that we're trying to encourage people to do. We're very much going to be dependent on our local concierge at resorts and hotels to encourage their guests. This is the best way for you to get to trailhead and not take a car. But also, this is really dependent on our locals that own these short-term rental properties. So when they're renting out on VRBO and Airbnb, it is really dependent upon them to explain to their guests how to get to these trailheads. Not just, hey, go hike lily pad lakes, but instead, this is how you get there without taking a car there. So
Absolutely, and we're working on some communication materials that should be available in the not too distant future for folks to be able to have sort of handouts or links to websites that people can go to, so they have a better understanding of, well, which route do I take, and what are the times that are associated with it, and then what trailheads can I conquer as a result of those bus rides. So, and again, carpooling is always a great example or great opportunity, and biking as well. So take advantage of that. Lots of safety issues that people maybe aren't really thinking about, but Quandary Peak is one really good example where the parking backs up to the point where folks are parking on the state highway, and other vehicles are not expecting to see cars blocking lanes of traffic on the state highway, and so can be very dangerous inside neighborhoods. Makes it real difficult for the folks that live there to get in and out, makes it real difficult for public safety as well. So just be mindful of those things. All right, that is all for our list. So there is our July county
summer update.
Yep, summer update, all done, and we'll be back in the fall.
Okay.
All right, take care and enjoy some other programming on SCTV 10.